When I opened Lucas Bennett's email on a quiet evening, I knew immediately this wasn't just another message seeking advice. Lucas, 34 years old, introverted, gentle, the kind of man who replies to texts with kindness rather than calculation, was writing to me as a way of exhaling. He said he didn't hate dating, he was just tired. And as I read each line, I understood why. Lucas told me that his 6 online dating experiences felt like 6 different doors in a maze, and every time he opened one, the story behind it was stranger than the last. A little funny, a little unsettling, and mostly filled with moments that made him ask himself, is it me, or has the dating world just changed too much? He didn't write with bitterness. Not at all. Lucas shared his stories with the quiet honesty of a kind man, trying to understand why his sincerity kept leading him into situations that were half sad, half comical. He said that every time he walked into a date, he hoped, maybe this time will be different. But then, just a few minutes into the meeting, he would feel like he was standing at a new crossroads in the maze, the kind where his instincts whispered, Lucas, be careful, something's off here. By the time I finished reading his email, I realized this wasn't just 6 failed dates. It was the journey of a heart that's too kind, wandering through an era where kindness is a gift many people no longer know how to receive. And today, I want to share that journey with you, exactly the way Lucas told it to me. Lucas said his first experience, with Megan, felt like a slap of reality, a warning shot. But at the time, he didn't yet understand that everything afterward would get even stranger. He met Megan through Facebook dating. His first impression? Pretty good. She was a few years younger, easy to talk to, had a stable job, and most importantly, she loved cats. Lucas laughed when he told me that, as if reminding himself that sometimes the cutest details hide the most complicated surprises. The date took place in a small food court inside a shopping mall. Megan arrived 5 minutes late and apologized with a shy little smile. And Lucas, being who he is, forgave her immediately. He even told me he thought she was kind of adorable in that moment. Everything was perfectly normal, until politics came up. Lucas isn't the kind of guy who likes to talk politics on a first date, but Megan brought it up herself. She mentioned she had once voted for someone named Harlan Creed. Lucas gave a polite smile. He had no idea who that was. But when he gently asked for more context, Megan leaned in, lowered her voice as if afraid someone might overhear. You know, Creed says the things other people are afraid to say. I like how he stands up for white values. Lucas said that in that exact moment, the temperature in the room felt like it dropped. He didn't respond, but his expression must have changed because Megan quickly added, I mean, I don't have a problem with people of color. I just don't want them around my kids, you know? Lucas did not know, and he didn't want to. What he felt was disappointment, the kind you get when you open a gift that looks beautiful on the outside. But the moment you see what's inside, you want to close the box immediately. The date ended earlier than planned. Lucas stayed polite, stayed kind, even wished her a good evening. But when he got home, he opened her Facebook page and froze. Post after post of far-right content. Hate-filled slogans shared proudly, almost celebratory. He closed his laptop, exhaled, and knew this was the first door of the maze, a door he would never open again. Lucas told me that if Megan made him cautious, Vanessa made him genuinely afraid, a primal kind of fear, like when you're standing in front of a dark road and your instincts whisper, turn around, now. And yet, on the first date, Vanessa didn't seem like that at all. Lucas described her as cheerful, fast-talking, a bit impulsive, but still within the charming range. He actually liked her energy. It was the opposite of his quiet nature. He thought maybe that contrast could balance things out. But by the second date, everything took a sharp turn. They were sitting in her car, talking, when Vanessa suddenly lifted her hand and showed Lucas her knuckles, still bruised and reddish. She said it with pride, not regret. These are from when I punched my dad so hard he had to go to the hospital. He mouthed off, so I had to teach him a lesson. Lucas froze. He thought she was joking, but she wasn't. Vanessa kept talking, clearly, confidently, with details. Then, as if to lighten the mood, she laughed and told him how she and a friend once drove around throwing eggs at homeless people for fun. Lucas said that in that moment, his heart just sank. He knew instantly this was not someone he could be around for long, but the part that sent chills down his spine was when she said bluntly, "I've been diagnosed with antisocial personality disorder, but don't worry, I can control it." No, Lucas didn't think she could control anything. The date ended in stiff, uncomfortable silence. Vanessa offered to walk Lucas back to his car. He didn't want her to, but she insisted. And then the most terrifying moment happened. Right after Lucas declined to kiss her, Vanessa suddenly slammed her foot on the gas, accelerating like someone who had lost every bit of control. 100 miles per hour, 160 kilometers per hour, on a road meant for 55. The car shook violently. Lucas said all he could do was grip his seatbelt and pray the car didn't veer off the road. "I thought you liked me," Vanessa said, her voice somehow both sad and angry. Lucas doesn't remember what he said afterward. He only remembers the overwhelming relief when the car finally stopped and he stepped out. His legs were shaking, his hands were cold, and he swore to himself this would be the first, and the last, time he ever dated someone who scared him more than being alone. That was the moment he understood. Sometimes a bad date isn't just bad. It can be a survival lesson. Lucas said his third experience, with Riley, wasn't dangerous like Vanessa, and not extreme like Megan, but it left him with a different feeling. Exhaustion. The kind of exhaustion you feel when you realize you've become an unwilling audience member in a movie where the other person keeps switching characters. He met Riley on a dating app, and at first, everything seemed normal. Nice-looking profile photo, artsy vibe, a hint of rebelliousness, but nothing over the top, Lucas thought. Okay, this could be interesting. But when the actual date happened, he had to blink a few times just to make sure he was meeting the right person, because the Riley in real life looked nothing like the Riley in the photos. Not just a little heavier, completely different. But Lucas is polite. He didn't walk away. He sat down, talked, and chose to respect the person in front of him instead of respecting the sting of feeling deceived. The date itself was fine. A bit awkward, but not terrible. Lucas thought, we're not a match, but at least this was peaceful. Until the next day, Riley posted a photo on Facebook. She was kissing another woman, with a caption full of self-liberation energy. Before Lucas could even process it, a few hours later, Riley posted another picture, this time with her head completely shaved, except for a few black ink designs drawn onto her scalp. Underneath was the caption, "Finally living my truth. I'm rediscovering my identity." Lucas told me he looked at that series of photos and felt like he was standing in the middle of a tornado, and he was just a leaf blowing by, no one was wrong. Riley had every right to explore who she was, to change, to grow, to be messy, to rebel. But Lucas also had the right to realize he didn't belong on that journey. He said, "I wasn't angry. I just realized I wasn't chosen. I was just standing there at the exact moment Riley needed someone to step on so she could move forward." And when he understood that, Lucas let go gently. No blame, no heartbreak, just a quiet sigh in the middle of the night. The sigh of someone starting to understand that today's dating world sometimes doesn't need a good heart. Sometimes it just needs an audience. And Lucas didn't want to play that role anymore. Lucas's fourth experience, with Lucia, felt like stepping into a story that was half romantic, half supernatural. A kind of mystery that didn't make the heart flutter, but made instinct whisper, "Something isn't right." Lucia was Brazilian, soft, low voice, sad eyes that made you want to protect her. Lucas said that from the very first moment, there was something fragile about her that made him want to believe her. But then, her mystery began stacking on itself like layers of fog. For their first date, Lucas drove to a small residential neighborhood at the address she sent. But when he stopped in front of the house, she didn't walk out the door like he expected. She appeared from the edge of the nearby woods. "I walked here from home," she said, smiling. Lucas believed her. Why wouldn't he? But on the second date, and the third, she still asked him to pick her up in that exact spot, a patch of empty ground beside a line of dark trees. Not a doorstep. Not an apartment entrance. Not once. Lucas said every time he saw her emerge from the shadows of the trees, he felt like he was meeting a character in a novel, someone who would never let you see the next chapter. And then things got even stranger. Lucia never ordered anything. No coffee, no drink, not even a small dessert. She just sat there, chin resting on her hand, watching Lucas eat, with a smile that was impossible to read. At first, Lucas thought she was just frugal. Then he started feeling observed, as if she hadn't come to date him, but to study him. His emotions, his attention, his loneliness. The third date ended with a gentle kiss. Lucia held his hand and said in a sad voice, "I'm going back to Brazil next week. I'm sorry, Lucas." He wasn't angry, just disappointed. But that night, Lucas happened to scroll through her Instagram. And Lucia wasn't in Brazil, wasn't preparing to go, wasn't packing anything. She was still checking in around Michigan, still posting coffee stories with friends the week after her supposed departure. Lucas stayed silent. He didn't ask. He didn't confront her. He understood. She didn't want his love. She didn't want his care. She just wanted a ride, a wallet, a warm presence to fill an empty space. "She used me like a temporary stopover," Lucas told me. And in the softness of that sentence, I could hear an entire sky of disappointment, the kind only kind-hearted people feel so deeply. His fifth experience. Lucas told it with a sad smile. The kind of smile people wear when they're used to hoping and then being let down. And this time, the main character was Ivy, the girl he had been messaging for 4 years. 4 years, in the world of online dating, is practically a lifetime. Lucas said Ivy was nothing like the others. She wasn't extreme, wasn't chaotic, wasn't mysterious. She was friendly, sweet, and always there whenever he needed someone to talk to. A kind of connection that made him think, maybe, this is the one. Then one day, Ivy said, "Lucas, I want to meet you. Let's go to Niagara Falls." He drove for hours to the meeting spot, not because he believed love would magically begin, but because he felt, this is someone who truly understands me. But when Lucas arrived at the hotel, Ivy wasn't alone. She showed up with a man around 50. Ivy introduced him quickly. "Oh, this is just my roommate." Lucas wanted to believe her. He wanted everything to be pure and simple. But throughout the entire trip, from the roar of the waterfall to the smallest activities, the man never left their side. He stood between them in line. He inserted himself into every conversation. He even answered for Ivy in several moments. Lucas felt like he was a spectator, watching two people live a life together, and he was the guest awkwardly stitched into their world. That evening, they finally got a few minutes alone as they went into a haunted house. Lucas gathered all his courage and asked Ivy, "Do you want to talk more? We could go up to the room, just to understand each other better." Ivy shook her head. "I'm tired. Let's talk tomorrow." But the next morning, Ivy didn't text. She didn't call. She didn't show up like she'd promised. Lucas only saw her and the older man walking back into the hotel, just as he was checking out. They avoided his eyes, heading straight upstairs as if he had never existed. A few days later, Ivy sent one vague message. "Sorry, things weren't what you think." No explanation, no real goodbye. Lucas understood. He wasn't Ivy's choice. He was just the place she went to hide from loneliness. And the moment someone else appeared, she switched him off like a light. 4 years of talking, Lucas said. But in the end, I was only her backup plan. And that truth was colder than the water falling at Niagara. Lucas's final experience with Harper, wasn't painful, wasn't chaotic, and didn't involve any disasters. But sometimes the stories with no drama leave the softest, most lingering ache. Harper showed up to the first date with a warm smile and a rare sense of poise. She worked in accounting, stable, independent, kind, and genuinely thoughtful in conversation. No bizarre surprises, no extremes, no mysteries, no sudden anger. Just a good woman, the kind many men say they hope to find. Lucas said that from the first meeting, he felt respected. Harper listened, was polite, shared just the right amount. She even offered to pay for her meal, something that almost never happened on his other dates. But when Lucas got home, something quiet inside him whispered, "I don't feel anything." Not because Harper did anything wrong, not because she wasn't attractive, but between the two of them, there was simply no spark. Lucas tried giving himself more time. The second date, still nice, still pleasant, but still empty. The third date, he watched Harper smile across the table and realized her smile didn't reach him in the way a real relationship needs to reach. In love, some things can't be forced. Kindness is a beautiful foundation, but it isn't the entire architecture of a relationship. And Lucas, a man who had already lived through too much chaos, understood that kindness alone wasn't enough. He could have started something with Harper. They would have gotten along. They would have been safe. They wouldn't have hurt each other. But one day, he would leave, or she would, because neither of them felt the emotion that makes two people want to hold hands for a long, long time. Lucas said he sat in his car for a long time after that last date. Not sad, not regretful, just telling himself, she deserves someone who sees her in a way I simply can't. So he sent Harper an honest message. No ghosting, no excuses. Lucas chose to walk away, not because Harper wasn't good enough, but because he knew both of them deserved a connection that truly moved them. It was a gentle but mature lesson. Not every relationship should begin just because two people are good. After the sixth experience, the softest yet most reflective one, Lucas began looking inward. No anger, no bitterness, just a man sitting in a quiet room, asking deeply human questions. Maybe I'm not good enough? Do I only attract people with issues? Or maybe I'm just not built for dating in the digital age? His questions weren't complaints, they were sighs, the kind you hear from someone who has tried so hard and still hasn't reached what they hope for. He told me that with every disappointment, he blamed himself, as if everything was his fault. But the truth is, it wasn't. Lucas wasn't lacking value. He was lacking boundaries. He was missing red lines to say, "No, this isn't okay with me." Missing standards to recognize early on who wasn't a good fit. Missing the courage to walk away after the first date instead of trying to give one more chance. I told Lucas, it's not that you keep attracting people with problems, you just don't know how to filter them. Lucas went quiet for a long moment after hearing that. As if, for the first time, he realized the issue wasn't bad luck. It was that he didn't yet know how to protect his own heart. And sometimes, that is the very first step toward finding someone who truly deserves you. As a marriage psychologist, and as a woman who has listened to hundreds of stories just like Lucas's, I, Veronica Hale, can tell you there's a very clear pattern. Kind men often end up with the wrong women, not because they're unattractive, not because they're unintelligent, not because they lack value, but because the way they approach love makes them easy to use as a rest stop by people who are not ready for healthy relationships. And there are three major reasons why. Reason 1, they're too patient, so patient they forget themselves. Kind men believe in something beautiful. Everyone deserves to be understood a little more. But in modern dating, that patience isn't always a strength. They give more chances. They give more time. They give more empathy, even when the red flags are right in front of them. They tolerate things that aren't okay, hoping the other person is just going through a rough phase. But the truth is, someone who isn't right for you won't magically become right. just because you're kind. Reason 2. They have no emotional filter. Anyone charming feels safe to them. Kind men judge others through the lens of their own sincerity because they don't play mind games, don't manipulate, don't exploit. They assume other people are the same. So if someone sends a few sweet messages, talks smoothly, shows a bit of interest, they open their heart too soon. The result? They easily become the person others use to test emotions, kill boredom, or seek temporary comfort, not because they aren't good enough, but because they don't know how to keep healthy distance in the beginning. And finally, they're afraid of judging too fast, afraid of being shallow, unfair, or unkind. I hear this from so many men. Veronica, isn't it cruel to judge someone based on the first impression? No. In online dating, it's a survival skill. When everyone presents the optimized version of themselves, when anyone can curate a flawless facade, spotting danger signs early isn't shallow, it's smart. But kind men hesitate. They don't want to misjudge someone. They don't want to accidentally reject a good person. And because of that, they walk straight into situations they should have avoided from the very first minute. When I finished listening to Lucas's 6 stories, I didn't think, wow, he has terrible luck. Not at all. Lucas isn't unlucky. He's simply navigating a dating world where genuine hearts often become temporary landing spots for people who aren't ready to love in a healthy way. The problem isn't Lucas's value. The problem is that he hasn't built emotional filters, hasn't drawn clear boundaries, and hasn't learned how to say no without feeling guilty. If one day Lucas learns to spot red flags immediately, walk away without needing to explain himself, and treat self-respect as his first line of defense, he will no longer wander into the strange, painful, or absurd situations he experienced with Megan, Vanessa, or Lucia. Instead, he'll meet someone who sees his worth and doesn't exploit it. And I believe this deeply. When Lucas learns to love himself differently, the way others love him will change too. If you've ever been through stories like Lucas's, share them in the comments. I want to hear from you, and your story might become the lesson someone out there needs. If you found today's video helpful, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe to Love and Lies TV so I can continue bringing you more stories that are real, deep, and healing. See you in the next video.